On June 26, 2007, the U.S. Department of Energy announced this massive, totally unprecedented breakthrough in bioenergy research.
Right, which is huge news.
Oh, absolutely. And on that exact same day, tragically, soldiers were killed in a roadside bombing in Mogadishu. But if he turns on the television,
I remember this. It was Paris Hilton.
yes, every single major network was just broadcasting wall-to-wall, breathless coverage of Paris Hilton getting out of jail.
I mean, drama drives ratings, you know. We actively choose trivial entertainment over paying attention to actual existential threats. It's just a fundamental flaw in how we process the world.
Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Yeah.
You are listening to this because, frankly, you want to navigate the current economic storm, whether you're running a Fortune 500 company or just, charting your own career path.
Exactly.
And our focus today is on a really provocative book called Evolve or Die: 7 Steps to Rethink the Way You Do Business by Robin Crow.
Yeah, he's an entrepreneur and a musician, and his main argument is that business as usual isn't just outdated anymore. It's essentially a death sentence.
Which sounds intense.
It does, but what's fascinating here is that Crow isn't just writing some doom and gloom survival guide. He's identifying this convergence of 4 massive global threats.
Right, the perfect storm.
Exactly. Explosive overpopulation, rapidly diminishing natural resources, skyrocketing energy demand, and severe environmental damage.
A reality that just completely shatters the illusion of safety in commerce.
It does, but he actually frames it as a highly practical blueprint. Like, how do you turn those monumental global challenges into massive business opportunities?
Wow.
But before we can capitalize on those opportunities, we have to look at our collective failure to recognize that the ground is even shifting. You know, the heat is rising around us, and we just keep hitting the snooze button.
Yeah, that reminds me of that crazy story Crow tells about Eastern Airlines Flight 401.
Oh, the Everglades crash.
Right. So the plane is coming in for a landing in the Everglades.
Mm.
It's totally dark. The pilot goes to lower the landing gear, and this tiny, insignificant indicator light bulb on the dashboard fails to illuminate.
Just the bulb, right? Not the actual gear.
Exactly. The gear is down and locked, but the light is dead. So the pilot and the co-pilot get completely fixated on this one broken bulb.
Right.
They're tapping it, unscrewing it, passing it back and forth in the dark cockpit.
And while they are obsessing over a 10-cent piece of glass, someone accidentally bumps the control stick, which completely disengages the autopilot.
Yeah. So the plane is slowly, imperceptibly descending right into the swamp. And the altitude warning chime starts going off in the background.
Literally blaring at them.
Blaring a warning.
Yeah.
And they just tune it out. 101 people died because nobody was actually flying the massive aircraft. They were just managing a minor inconvenience.
Yeah.
It's like trying to fix the radio volume while your car engine is actively on fire.
That is a perfect analogy. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the exact mechanism of human confirmation bias in the corporate world.
What do you mean?
Well, we instinctively look for information that confirms what we already want to believe, which is that everything is fine and tomorrow will look exactly like yesterday.
Right. Nobody wants to think the plane is going down.
Exactly. And you combine that psychological blind spot with a corporate culture that is obsessively focused on short-term, 90-day, quarterly profits.
Oh, yeah.
You create an environment that actively ignores slow-moving train wrecks.
Yeah.
We get so consumed managing the daily trivia, the emails, the meetings, the minor complaints, that we don't even notice the descent.
And the descent isn't just a bad quarter. I mean, Crow argues that our entire economic model is fundamentally flawed. He points to the Mayan Empire.
Yeah, that was a striking example.
They were a thriving civilization for 1,400 years. But they fell victim to their own unchecked success. To build bigger and grander pyramids, they clear-cut massive swaths of forest to burn limestone for stucco.
Right, which completely changed their microclimate.
Exactly. It triggered catastrophic droughts.
Yeah.
And while the ruling class focused on monuments, the artisan and farming classes literally starved to death.
Because he compares our global economic engine to a classic Ponzi scheme, like the one run by Bernie Madoff.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. In a Ponzi scheme, early participants are paid off using the resources of the later rivals until the whole thing collapses under its own mathematical weight. Because, you inevitably run out of new people to exploit.
Okay, wait a minute. I have to push back on this. Is all economic growth inherently a pyramid scheme? A lot of businesses absolutely have to grow just to survive, scale their operations, and pay their employees. You can't just mandate that commerce stops.
Oh, sure. And the author makes a very careful distinction here. Not all growth is bad. The problem is perpetual growth operating on a planet with strictly finite resources.
Oh, I see.
We are borrowing heavily from our children's environmental future, their freshwater aquifers, their topsoil, their fossil fuels, all to fund today's aggressive consumption. And this model has no reverse gear. There is no Federal Reserve bailout waiting at the end when the Earth's physical resources actually tap out. I mean, just look at the systemic inefficiency. In the U.S. alone, we waste 50% of our food supply.
50%.
Yes, 50% wasted at various stages, while billions globally go to bed hungry. The math simply does not pencil out long term.
So the global economy is basically running on borrowed time.
Yeah.
But if you're a business owner listening to this, you obviously can't fix the macro economy by yourself. You can only fix your own house.
Exactly.
And you look at Robin Crow's personal case study. He used to be a recording artist signed to RCA Records. And by age 40, he was dropped by the label and completely broke.
Right. And forced change is always the ultimate catalyst, isn't it? He had to completely reinvent his livelihood.
He did. So he decides to build a recording studio from scratch out on his farm in Tennessee. He racks up $134,000 in credit card debt just to get the doors open.
Which is terrifying.
Completely terrifying. He calls it dark horse recording. But just as he gets the business off the ground, the digital revolution absolutely guts the music industry.
Oh, right. Because suddenly anyone with a laptop and a cheap microphone can record an album in their bedroom.
Exactly. So the massive, expensive commercial recording studios start dropping like flies.
And most business owners in that scenario would just panic. They'd try to compete in a race to the bottom on hourly rates, or they'd take out massive loans to buy even more flashy recording gear.
Just to justify their existence.
Well, right.
But Crow realized that recording technology was rapidly becoming a commodity. So instead of competing on the gear, he competed entirely on the human experience.
Step one. Yeah.
Yes. He started making these massive, elaborate custom deli sandwiches for his clients. He had country star Faith Hill in the studio, and he's just rolling out these incredible spreads.
I love this story.
It's so good. It got to the point where inflation meant he needed to raise his daily studio rate by $75 just to keep the lights on. He was terrified to ask for the increase, but Faith Hill literally told him the sandwiches alone are worth it.
Because he took that philosophy of radical hospitality and scaled it. Like when Tim McGraw came to record the album Southern Voice.
Yeah, what did he do for him?
Crow didn't tout a new mixing console. He built an enormous outdoor fire pit and set up a giant projection screen so McGraw and his band could watch Monday Night Football under the stars.
Oh, wow.
He even built a driving range in an empty horse pasture so the musicians could hit golf balls between takes.
Okay, wait, pushing back again here. Making a sandwich for a celebrity or building a driving range is a great, folksy anecdote. But how is that a scalable business strategy for the listener? I can't just make custom deli sandwiches for all my B2B vendors.
Well, the sandwich is just a vehicle, right?
Yeah.
The core strategy is finding low-cost, high-impact ways to relentlessly exceed expectations. When the technology or the product you sell inevitably becomes a commodity that anyone can get anywhere, the only true differentiator you have left is how you make people feel when they interact with you.
Which is the exact opposite of what Circuit City did.
Oh, absolutely.
The book points out that the electronics giant went bankrupt precisely because they made the act of spending money actively unpleasant. They laid off their most experienced, highest-paid salespeople to save a few bucks.
Right.
They closed registers, creating massive, frustrating lines. They actively degraded the human experience to protect short-term margins, and it killed the company.
It did. But exceeding expectations purely on adrenaline and charm is exhausting. If you rely on heroic daily efforts to wow your clients, you will burn out.
For sure.
To make that level of service sustainable, you have to hardwire it into your daily operations. You have to commit to daily measurable improvement, which is what the Japanese manufacturing sector calls kaizen.
I love the example he uses here of Mike Rayburn.
The guitarist, right?
Yeah, he's a comedy virtuoso guitarist who charges massive fees for corporate events. And the reason he commands that kind of money is because he treats every single second on stage as expensive real estate.
Right, he's obsessive about it.
Totally. He obsessively reviews his tapes, constantly trimming weak jokes, cutting out even single filler words just to get to the punchline a fraction of a second faster.
Wow.
Over 20 years, that tiny, relentless daily improvement boosted his speaking fee by 3,000%.
Which is incredible. And Crow applied this exact philosophy to Dark Horse recording by creating what he calls the 90 rules.
The 90
Yeah,
rules.
it's a living operational manual that is constantly updated, and it is hyper-specific. So, for example, instead of serving hundreds of plastic bottles of water and dealing with the waste, the rule is to serve purified water from a central reverse osmosis tap.
Which seems like a tiny detail, but the mechanics of that are brilliant. It stops the studio from buying and throwing away thousands of single-use plastics. It forces the clients to use real glassware, which feels more premium. And it subtly communicates the studio's environmental values.
Without preaching to anyone. Another rule, if a booking inquiry comes in, the staff is required to track down the studio manager immediately. No matter where he is, it creates an absolute baseline of operational excellence.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Having 90 rules only works if someone is actually explicitly in charge of them. We mentioned the SEC missing Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme for 17 years earlier.
Yeah, an unbelievable oversight.
The SEC had active investigations. They had credible whistleblowers handing them the math, but they still missed it. And when the government reviewed the failure, they realized a massive structural flaw.
No single individual.
Exactly. No single individual at the agency was ever assigned the specific, dedicated responsibility of hunting for Ponzi schemes.
It was a catastrophic systemic failure of accountability. And a very similar dynamic paralyzed FEMA's response during the critical early days of Hurricane Katrina.
It's exactly like a bad group project in high school. Everyone assumes the other person is doing the reading, so nobody does the reading, and the entire group fails the presentation.
That's spot on. In business, you must rigorously document your mission-critical functions. You have to assign each one of those functions to a specific named person.
Right.
And crucially, you have to actually sit them down and inform that person that they alone own the outcome. It's Harry Truman's "the buck stops here" philosophy. If a task belongs to the whole department, it belongs to no one.
So you adopt the mindset of exceeding expectations, you build the Kaizen systems to sustain it, and you assign strict accountability.
Exactly.
But to execute all this efficiently in a rapidly changing economy, you need multidimensional thinking. You have to start solving multiple problems at once with immense creativity.
And the source gives some brilliant historical examples of this. Think about the shipping giant UPS.
Okay.
They designed a proprietary routing algorithm that actively prevents their delivery trucks from making left-hand turns across oncoming traffic.
Wait, really? Just avoiding left turns? That sounds completely absurd until you look at the math, I'm guessing.
It does sound crazy, but by favoring right-hand turns, the trucks spend vastly less time idling at traffic lights waiting for a gap in traffic. They don't burn gas going nowhere.
Oh, wow.
That single, multi-dimensional shift in logistics saves the company 3 million gallons of fuel every single year. It cuts delivery times and significantly lowers their corporate carbon footprint. One creative solution, 3 massive benefits.
That is brilliant. Or look at the shopsmith tool invented by Dr. Hans Goldschmidt. After World War II, people were moving into houses with small garages.
Right.
They wanted to do woodworking, but they didn't have the space or the money for a full shop. So Goldschmidt combined a table saw, a lathe, and a drill press into one single mechanical footprint, all running off the exact same interchangeable motor.
It saves space, saves materials, and revolutionized the home workshop.
Exactly.
But this raises an important question, though. How do you implement these kinds of massive operational changes without destroying company morale?
Yeah, change always involves friction.
Right. Old habits die hard. To survive the pain of evolving your business, you need profound unity. You have to create a culture of shared sacrifice.
Like during World War II, the government asked regular Americans to plant victory gardens in their backyards to ease the pressure on the national food supply so commercial crops could go to the troops.
Right.
At one point, those amateur home gardens were producing 40% of the country's entire vegetable supply.
Wow.
And today, we are seeing a modern resurgence of this with what some call recession gardens. Even high-end restaurants are doing it. Meal Bistro in Nashville started growing their own organic produce on a plot of land just 10 minutes from their kitchen.
Which creates local jobs, insulates them from wholesale food costs, and slashes their carbon footprint.
Exactly. But let's be honest, shared sacrifice usually just sounds like corporate speak for we are laying you off, freezing your raises, and canceling the holiday party while the CEO buys a boat.
Which is a very fair point,
Uh,
and it's why shared sacrifice in a corporate setting is incredibly delicate. It requires genuine leadership, not just management.
right.
The author provides a stark contrast he calls the tale of two leaders. First, you have Donald Carty, the former CEO of American Airlines.
Okay.
The company was bleeding money. Carty went to the labor unions and pleaded for $1.62 billion in severe pay cuts and concessions to save the airline from bankruptcy.
And the workers agreed. Right.
They did. But days later, federal filings revealed that Carty had secretly protected $41 million in executive retention bonuses for himself and his top brass.
Oh, man. The ultimate betrayal of trust.
Exactly. The deal instantly unraveled, and Carty was rightfully forced to resign. Now, contrast that failure with Lee Iacocca taking over Chrysler in the 1980s.
What did he do?
Chrysler was literally on the brink of absolute collapse. Before Iacocca went to the powerful auto unions to ask for a single concession, he publicly reduced his own salary to exactly $1 a year.
Wow. $1.
$1. He forced the rest of the top executives to take massive, painful pay cuts. Then, and only then, he went to the unions.
Because he absorbed the blow first.
Yes, true shared sacrifice must start at the very top. Iacocca earned the moral authority to ask for help, and because the workers saw his undeniable sacrifice, they agreed to the necessary concessions. Together, they saved 170,000 jobs.
That is incredible. So what does this all mean? We are adapting. We are blowing past customer expectations, improving our processes by fractions of an inch every day, holding individuals strictly accountable, thinking multidimensionally, and leading through shared sacrifice.
Yeah.
But what is the ultimate end goal here? Why put in all this effort just to survive? The entire paradigm has to shift toward a triple bottom line. It's like a three-legged stool.
Right. Traditionally, the corporate world measures success by a single ruthless metric, which is profit. But the triple bottom line expands that measurement to three equally vital pillars: people, planet, and profit.
Because if you only focus on profit and ignore people or the planet, the stool eventually tips over.
Exactly. It is a realization that a business simply cannot thrive long-term in a failing society or on a dying planet.
It acts like a corporate immune system.
Yeah.
If you strip away the people and planet metrics to artificially boost profit, you compromise the entire system. You might look healthy on paper for a quarter or two, but the next supply chain shock completely wipes you out because you have no goodwill left.
And the financial data absolutely backs this up. The source points to Stonyfield Farms, the organic yogurt company. They proved that integrating sustainable practices actively drove a 24% annual profit increase for 18 consecutive years.
Wow.
Ben & Jerry's built fierce brand loyalty through their social missions. And Newman's Own, Paul Newman's food brand, their motto was literally shameless exploitation in pursuit of the common good.
I love that.
They've generated over $250 million for charity simply by making a great salad dressing and giving the profits away.
I love the mechanics behind Thomas S. shoes, too. Blake McCoskey created the one-for-one model. You buy a pair of shoes, the company gives a pair to a child in a developing nation.
Right.
And this isn't just about PR photos. Functionally, giving away those specific shoes literally prevents children from contracting debilitating soil-transmitted parasites through the soles of their bare feet. They gave away 500,000 pairs in just their first few years.
Because giving back isn't a marketing gimmick, it has to become a core operational strategy. Look at Feed America First, founded by Tom Henry.
Okay.
He identified a massive inefficiency. Warehouses full of perfectly good food that was slightly overstocked or nearing a sell-by date. Because of his intense Kaizen-level focus on operational efficiency, the charity operates on a razor-thin 4 to 6% overhead.
That's unheard of.
The result: for every single dollar donated, they can physically distribute 13 meals to people in need.
13 meals for one single dollar. That is multidimensional thinking firing on all cylinders.
It really is. If we synthesize this entire journey, integrating solutions to global problems with profitable commercial strategies is the only realistic way to get the broader business world engaged.
Right.
When a business genuinely gives back, it attracts abundance, fiercely loyal customers, dedicated employees, and unparalleled goodwill.
So, to bring this all home for you, we started by looking at the perfect storm. The terrifying, undeniable convergence of overpopulation, resource depletion, energy demands, and environmental damage.
Yeah.
We saw how easy it is to focus on a broken light bulb while the plane goes down,
Hmm.
but we've also seen that evolving your way out of the swamp doesn't require a massive Fortune 500 budget.
Not at all. It requires relentless curiosity, the courage to assign clear accountability, the humility to share the sacrifice, and the daily discipline to simply exceed expectations.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We talked about multidimensional thinking, but I want you to think back to a specific piece of history involving Henry Ford.
Oh, the shipping boxes.
Yes. Over a century ago, Ford was buying carburetors from a third-party supplier. He demanded that the manufacturer ship those carburetors in wooden boxes built to incredibly precise, seemingly bizarre dimensions.
With the nail holes drilled in very specific spots.
Exactly. The supplier thought Ford was an eccentric micromanager, but they wanted the contract, so they complied. What they didn't know was that when those wooden shipping boxes arrived at the Ford assembly plant, the auto workers simply disassembled them.
Right.
Because of the precise dimensions and the pre-drilled holes, those exact pieces of scrap wood fit perfectly into the Model T as the floorboards.
Brilliant.
Ford got his shipping materials and his car parts for the exact same price. If someone could invent a masterclass in sustainability almost a century ago purely to protect his profit margins, what unseen resources in your own life, things you currently dismiss as waste or frustration, are just waiting for a multidimensional thinker to repurpose them into your next big breakthrough?
We don't have to be the passive passengers staring blankly at the dashboard. We have the tools to grab the controls and fly the plane out of the swamp.
Keep learning, keep adapting, and keep evolving. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.